I'm Eric Novak, and this here beside me is the 2018 Nissan Kicks. It's an all-new offering from Nissan into the hyper-competitive crossover segment, and it is filling in a gap in its overall lineup where once upon a time the polarizing and somewhat quirky Nissan Juke used to occupy. We all know in North America that the preferences of consumers has drawn heavily towards crossovers and SUVs, and all the automakers are doing everything they can to fill their lineup with offerings that make sure all demographics and all categories can get themselves into a crossover. And with the new Nissan Kicks, it's pretty clear who they're offering this vehicle towards, and that is young people, urban dwellers, people who are just couples without children, and even just singles who are having their first car. It's in the affordable segment, and it's a really interesting vehicle. It's got some quirks to it and some pretty innovative items that may have that type of appeal for the target market. And so on this review, I'm going to take a look at the all-new Nissan Kicks. Now, the Nissan Kicks is an all-new design, and it was put together by the design teams for Nissan in both California and in Brazil, so there is some North and South American influence in the overall look, and I gotta admit, it's an interesting and attractive package for the segment. There are some features on the exterior design that make you know it's a Nissan, but there's also some things that you've not seen before. Notable, of course, to be consistent with their overall design language, the Kicks has the traditional V-motion grille, as well as the boomerang headlights and tail lights that wrap around. They've also decided to include traditionally this floating roof concept, and basically again what they always do is they black out the C-pillar, and on the Kicks the C-pillar is pretty wide, so it makes a pretty distinctive separation between the body and the roof. And with the Kicks, they also are getting into a two-tone color design. It's not always that way, but they have several two-tone color designs, kind of like the Toyota CHR, and again, it's targeting younger drivers, so this type of thing does have appeal to it. There are some unique design aspects to the exterior here. You've got these really significant flare-out wheel arches that almost give it a bit of a more sturdier look. It looks kind of athletic and taut with those flare-outs, and you've got this rising belt line that almost gives it a bit of a sturdier approach as well. There's a flat roof concept here, which actually is beneficial, not so much on the outside, but on the inside, because it is a compact, small vehicle, but the flat roof, as you'll see when we take a look inside, it does give it quite a lot of space. But overall, the packaging and the aesthetics of this are pretty good on this new Kicks. Inside the 2018 Nissan Kicks, occupants will work with and look at what Nissan calls a gliding wing dashboard design. It's simplistic and not overly flashy, with a 7-inch full-color center display as its focal point. Through the center screen, you can connect to Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, but no built-in GPS navigation is available. A healthy balance of touch and tactile controls are used, providing a solid mix of aesthetics and pragmatics, although the gear selector and parking brake is sitting a bit lower than ideally like to see it. For the connected crowd, there are 2 additional charge-only USB ports available. Seats are comfortable and provide a natural and comfortable seating position for maximum comfort. Something I wanted to point out on the interior of the Nissan Kicks, in particular in this SR, this top-level SR trim, is, you know, with millennials who would be a presumed target market for this, urban dwellers, they're not necessarily looking for large vehicles, and they're not necessarily looking for powerful vehicles. It's not about horsepower, it's about convenience. But one thing they tend to not want to sacrifice is the quality of the sound system in the car. They want to have a sound system in their vehicle that allows them to play the music they want and sound good. rightfully so. As a guy who started his career in radio 28 years ago, I always have a soft spot for good OEM sound systems. Now, with Nissan, they're working with Bose, and Bose has created a small vehicle car audio sound system, and there are unique aspects to designing something like that. So in this SR Kicks, they have an 8-speaker system that has a lot of strategy put into where the tweeters and the main speakers are placed, including something that I thought was kind of quirky at first, but the more I've used it, I see there's a benefit to it. Here on the headrest of the driver's side are 2 speakers on either side. The small 2.5-inch speakers are not excessively powerful. Now, when I first heard about it, I thought, wow, it's like you're going to have headphones beside you and you're blowing your eardrums out. And in fact, it's quite the opposite. When I first started driving this, I didn't even really notice it at first, and in a way, that's kind of the point. If you know Bose waveform radios that they have, a lot of times the engineering of the acoustics so that it could fill a room in a different way than you'd expect. It's not about multiple speakers, but the way the waveforms are projected. And so these speakers on the back here, what they really do is they more enhance and fill in the gaps of sound so you have more of an immersive experience. And what you can also do is you can create more of a personal space. On the center touchscreen, there's an input where you can enter the personal space, and you can actually adjust through your fingers whether you want a more narrow scope of the sound or something to fill the car. And in the end, I mean, this thing, it does sound pretty good. I'd say it performs better than you'd expect in a sort of a small economy type of car is. Certainly a lot better than the small economy cars of a generation ago. But it's a neat instrument, and I think it's going to have something of unique appeal to those who are looking at a vehicle such as the Kicks. So when we were looking at the exterior design and I talked about how it had a bit of a flat roof, I think the main benefit really is it comes to how much interior space at least you feel you have. It's not a wide vehicle, and the second row does have 3 seat belts, and you could, technically fit 3, I'd say 3 thin adults across here. But one of the benefits is with the higher headroom amount, it does feel more spacious than it can be. And I think for a vehicle of this size, it's not really intended to have a lot of people in for long periods of time, but the added headroom does give it a more positive feeling of spaciousness, and I think that's definitely a plus. As it's designed for urban use, the Kicks drives and handles in a way that fits its marketplace well. A tight turning radius ensures 3-point turns on small streets is no problem, and the high seating position and ample headroom offer great sight lines all around. The Kicks is powered exclusively by a 1.6-liter 4-cylinder engine that puts out 125 horsepower and 115 pound-feet of torque, which is fed to the front wheels. A CVT is the only transmission available, and while the combination is generally acceptable, I found it lacking a bit when it came to short entry lanes onto the highway, where I was hoping for a bit more oomph. Fuel economy figures according to the US EPA for the Kicks are 7.1 liters per 100 kilometers or 33 US miles per gallon, which are decent numbers, but in my time with it I was able to beat that figure by almost 10%. This car is pleasing to drive and relatively stingy when it comes to burning fuel. As North American car buyers are continuing to move their preferences away from the cars and sedans and into crossovers and SUVs, it really is interesting to watch how automakers are adjusting their portfolios to make sure that their offerings are in line with preferences. And this Nissan Kicks is a really good example of how one automaker is trying to do that. It's a pretty attractive car, I got to admit, for the right demographic, for those who are the millennials, those who are the empty nesters even, those who don't have a lot of storage needs, but like something that's attractive and easy to drive around city streets. It's easy to park. There's not a lot of big footprint for it. It's pretty efficient on gas as well. This is a package that I think is going to do quite well. It's also priced relatively attractive for that segment of buyer. So I think if you're someone who is looking for a small, urban, affordable crossover, this is yet another another one of the new lineup of offerings that you should probably take a look at. I liked it, and I think you might too. That's it for my review of the 2018 Nissan Kicks. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm Eric Novak. Thanks for watching. There's plenty of ways for you to keep connected with me, so check out some of my social media links, suggested videos, and I'd really love it if you subscribe to my YouTube channel.